this. All right, so good morning once again, and welcome to the Mobile Computing Lab. I'm Andy, and today we'll be looking at UI prototyping. We will try to implement this. Today's lesson is to build a prototype according to the design below. Interestingly, I removed the design and actually put the full implemented code in here. So I have built this simple application that you click this. We have a login screen, then we have the main interface of the application, and then we have another screen. So technically, we're trying to simulate a bank. And what we're doing is that you sign in, then this launches the main interface or the dashboard of the application. And you can see various payments here. And then there are categories up here. And then when you click on this floating action button, it opens the payments view for you to add a new payment. And so we have a recipient name, a recipient account, date, an amount, and then a button to save the payment. This is technically just the design. No functionalities exist besides the click of the button, the interaction when you click a button. And so we'll try as much as possible to implement this. I would make the code available. Next week, we would improve on this by adding a database in there. So I want to ensure the application grows over the course of the exercise sessions. All right. Okay. So how do we create interfaces in Android? And when I'm talking about interfaces, I'm talking about UI. Okay, the user interface, because interfaces can be something else. All right. Previously, we are technically working with Jetpack Compose, but previously, Android was built using XML-based layouts. So you have a separate file for the UI where you design all your UI using XML, and then you have a different file for writing your code, your Java code or your Kotlin code. And then you have access, you link your code or your reference items in your XML layout inside your Java code or your Kotlin code, and you interact with it. But in Jetpack Compose, that is no longer the case. Everything is done in the code programmatically. All right. So in XML-based layouts, we have this very interesting layout we call linear layout. It lays things out linearly in order. So in linear layouts, elements can be either horizontally or something else. So, but in Jetpack Compose, the same thing is done, but we call it rows. So we create a row. So when we create a row, it's going to be horizontal. And so rows give you this. You add another element, it goes horizontally. You add another element, it goes horizontally. You add another element, it goes horizontally. On the flip side is the column. When you use a column, then the items or the elements are ordered vertically. So we can have these stacked on top of each other. All right. Now, here is an example of a linear layout. This is XML based. I just want to show you an example. We are not going to be using this, but this is how it used to be created. It is still done in companies where, or people who choose to work with the old way, not with Jetpack Compose. You have to create a linear layout, and then you have to set an orientation. And that orientation, you need to choose one of these. So if you set it to be vertical, then it's going to be vertical. And if you choose it to be horizontal, then it is going to be horizontal. All right. But in Jetpack Compose, this is how we do it. We create a column, and in parentheses, we define a modifier. Here, our modifiers just allow us to style our layout. So we call our modifier, we say it should fill the maximum width. So it should fill the whole width of the column. And then when you're defining columns, you need to set the vertical arrangement and then the horizontal alignment. When you're doing for rows, it is the other way around. So in creating a column, we set the horizontal alignment to start. We are aligning these items, although they are stacked on each other, we are aligning them to the left. So this is start, align, this is top, this is end, and this is bottom. Okay, so start, top, end, bottom. And so we are aligning it to the start. And our vertical arrangement, we want to center it. So it's going to be centered on the width of the screen. We also have top. So it's good. So this, for instance, looks top rather than centered. All right. So one important element that helps us in design our layout is something we call constraint layouts. Constraint layouts allows us to be able to arrange the various elements on the page relative to each other. So say we have element A, we have element B, and we have element C. We want element A, and this is the screen, okay. This is the whole screen. So our element A is aligned to the parent on the start. It's aligned to the parent at the top. And we see that element B is aligned to element A, to the start of element B, which is this side, is aligned to the end of element A. The top of element B is aligned to the top of the parent, and the end of element B is aligned to the end of the parent. When it comes to element C is also the start of element C is aligned to the start of the parent. The top of element C is aligned to the bottom of element A. So that is why element C is beneath element A, because its top is aligned to the bottom of element A. And the end here, in this case, would be aligned to the end of parent, or it could be aligned to this depending on the length. In this case, I think it should be aligned to the start of B. So this is constraint layout, and we would use it a few times, and we will be able to see how the layout changes based on what we do with it. All right, so I wanted to show you a little bit about how we can add resources to your projects. Resources are images that you can use within your application. It can be so many things, but this is the old XML base. And you can see there is a resource folder. We looked at it the last time. In the resource folder, in the XML base, you have to create a layout, and you have to put all your XML base layouts in there. You can also create a menu layout and have your menu items in there. Your images go into your map, or if they can be converted into drawables, then you can put them in drawables as well. But oftentimes we prefer to put XML-based layouts in in the drawables. Then in these values, we looked at this the last time. You have strings, you have styles, you have colors. Not all these will be available in Jetpack Compose because we'll be doing it slightly differently. So this is how the menu item for XML looks like. You have to write these independently and then reference them in your code. Okay, so this is what we'll be building today. We'll try to replicate this design in our project, the one we created last week. And we'll see how far we're able to go with this. But I'll make the code available, and I'll be available for any questions that you may have. Yeah, any questions so far? Okay, I take that as no questions. And what do you mean by you're going to submit something? You mean today? You have homeworks that you'll be doing that are based on the exercise sessions. So the knowledge that you'll be acquiring in the exercise sessions, you would have to use in the homework assignments that you will be doing. No, not all. Well, it depends. If a particular button is interactive, then it has to be functional. For instance, you can't say that when you click on this button, it opens this page, but then you don't implement it so that when we click on it, nothing happens. If it is interactive, if it should do something, then definitely you should have it there. But it's very easy to create the interactions. It's no big deal. I will be teaching you how to, we will be doing this together in the lab, so you don't have to go and figure this out on your own. All right, this is not a homework. This is what we will be working on together. So Kemal, you don't have to step up, no. All right. Okay, so do you still see my screen? I have Android Studio open. Okay, all right, great. Before this, actually, this is what we were working on the last time. This is the project we created. But I want to show you the application that we are going to be looking at. Okay, so I created the app here, and this is it. So say, and then I'm gonna put a password in there, and then we'll click on this login. It brings us to this particular layout. We can scroll. So these are just hard coded, and we can scroll as well. But of course, when you click on investment, we expect that payments that have gone towards investment should be rendered here. That has not been done yet, but that is obviously the goal. And I believe we should be able to do that by end of next week, next week's session. But this floating icon button, when you, let me see if this, okay, search doesn't work. When you click on this button, it opens up this form. And then if you click on this one, it brings you back to this. So this is the simple application that we'll be creating, and it's going to be introducing us to a lot of things that you'll be using in your applications. Okay. Before we go forward, I would want to show you something about the folder structure that I decided to create. Okay. So I'm just going to compare these two with an example code bank that I have. I have a data package, I have a domain package, I have a UI package, and I have a utilities package. Currently, we already have a UI in here, and then the main activity. I moved the main activity into the UI, and I created an application class which we'll create, and a graph class. I will explain what a graph, objects does. So we are going to, in our domain, this is empty, obviously. We'll be working on this next week. In our domain, we'll be putting our implementation stuff here. So we'll be abstracting implementation away from the UI. So the UI is technically going to be used for rendering UI stuff only. We'll put our domain, our interfaces, our use cases, and our repositories in the domain. And in the data, we would I will be implementing. I don't know if we should put a repository here. Okay. I think we'll define the repository interface here and create the implementation here. Or we can just leave it all in the data. We have our entities where we define the data classes for the objects that we'll be creating, and then a repository. The repository will sit in data because it is the only element that would be connecting to communicating to our database, which would fall under data. So the repository is going to communicate to our database and retrieve data. Our use case is going to interact with the repository, and then we make some implementations on it here in the domain, and then we are going to have our view model, which would reside here in this UI, interact with our use cases from the domain, and then display stuff in the UI. So we'll come to that next week. But today, we're going to have the home. We are going to implement the login screen. We implement the payment, and the home is this one. So as you can see, this is the most complex of them all, and we will try to move as quickly as possible. We do not have enough time, but I hope we'll be able to get somewhere. The code will definitely be available. So I'll try to explain things as much as possible so that when you look at the code later on, I believe things will be clearer. Don't be bothered by all the shenanigans here. You would understand once we do 1, 2, 3 examples. So I'm going to keep this code open on my next screen, and I'll be referring to it because I don't have everything in my head. And since I will be coding now, if you have any questions, please unmute and ask. Okay, draw my attention. I won't be able to keep my eyes on the chat anymore. Okay. Well, this is what we have from last week. You see mine is in red because I had initialized the gates the last time. I haven't added anything yet. So where do we begin? I would naturally begin by creating the folders that I need. We already have the UI, so I'll just create another package for data. Okay. And then I would be moving my main activity into my UI. It's just a decision that I made. You don't necessarily have to do that. Okay. So now that my activity is in the UI package, I'm going to create the application class. The application class is the overall class. That is where your application would usually begin from. It is first called before any other activity is called. If it is optional to provide, so if you do not provide it, the application can still run like we tried the last time. But I'm going to create this do I need this right now? Maybe I will not create this application class right now. But we'll start by creating something that I called the app. What is the name of app? Mobile computing. So I'm going to say mobile computing app. And I'll create a file, mobile computing app. Another UI theme, yeah, add to Git. And remember, everything in Compose is, almost everything in Compose is going to be, has the annotation composable. So I'm going to import that. And again, I'm going to call it mobile computing app. Okay, in this particular file, all that I want to do is to define navigation within my application. All right, I want to define navigation. How do we move from one screen to another? So Android provides us with this nav host. Oh, shoot. Yeah, well, let me just do this nav hosts. And we can see that nav hosts cannot be resolved. It cannot be resolved because the dependency does not exist. The library is not there. So we come into our module, mobile computing.app, build Gradle for mobile computing.app, not the projects, this one. And over here, we are supposed to add the dependencies that we need within our application. And so I'm just going to share the dependencies that we need from the other project. And as you can see, we need all these, at least so far. So I'm just going to copy all this. We need accompanies. It allows us to control the windows. These consist of a lot of libraries that have been built by the software community to help bring some specific layouts that are not available naturally in Android into Android. And this is the navigation one that we're looking for, navigation compose. There is one for view model. Then we have coroutines. We are not there yet, but we just bring it. Then for constraint layout. And whenever you see this, it means that there is a newer version that you can move to. I'm just going to leave this here. I don't want to be dealing with version issues right now. And there is this foundation also for layout. All right, so I'm just going to bring all these down here. Did I copy that? Nope, I did not. No, I did not. So whenever I add a dependency, I try to name the dependency. I just put a comment, name the dependency, so I know that I introduced these and what they're actually for. So anytime you add something to the build.gradle, you need to sync. So we click on this sync and then we wait on Gradle to build. and it just builds really fast. So now our navigation host is available because we have added a dependency. All right, I'm gonna move this back. And then, so you can just hover on it and click import. And we would be choosing, so you see two different navigations. There is 100x.navigation and 100x.compose.ui.modifier. So I need this one, the compose one. So you be careful. If you import some other one, you may not be able to get the details that you want. So I defined a navigation controller, and I'm going to show, I'm going to call this app states. Now I'm going to be passing app states to my mobile computing app. And I'm going to call this remember that it's good. This remember allows me to keep in memory the state of my application. All right, now this is red because it has not been created yet. And so we can go to the app states and define the app states and then come back to this. So I'm going to call this mobile computing app states, and it's not going to be a class, it's going to be a file. Okay. So over here, we need three things actually. But first of all, okay, let's define a class mobile. And this class will take a controller, nav controller, nav host. Yeah. So we are going to be using navigation from the nav host controller in here. And so this is where we would actually be controlling stuff. So say we have navigate. And I'm going to just call my nav controller dot. All right. All that I'm saying here is that when we call this navigate back function, the navigation controller should just pop the back stack. The back stack is technically when you open one screen and you open another, it is stacked on top. So if I am on a particular screen and I say go back, I just want to pop the top one off. Okay, so that's like you're flicking it off. So I'm popping the back stack, meaning that I'm removing the last element that was placed on top of the stack. Okay. We also create a composable for remember mobile computing state. Then it's a controller, and here is going to be my nav controller. So whenever we call this remember app state, all that is doing is that it is going to set the navigation controller to our to mobile computing app state controller, this mobile computing app state. So we are setting the universal navigation controller to our mobile computing app states. So we are going to be managing our states all the way from inside of here. One interesting component as well that I didn't show, okay, maybe I wouldn't show it in this particular one because we haven't talked about this, is field classes. We haven't talked about classes yet. So, well, now immediately I created this, it's going to be available for me. So now I can import. And mobile computing apps. There's, I just want to make sure the naming, remember mobile computer. Oh, I didn't add the app in there. So now it should be available. Yes, Windows option enter, and I have now imported it. Okay, so now I have created the app states, and so I can handle my navigation. So our nav host also takes something we call the start destination. All right, this is where it should begin from. So our start destination, we'll call this login. So we are saying that it should start from the login page. All right. So to start from the login page, we need to create a composable, and then the composable takes a root. So we can say root, and our root is going to be login. And then we'll have to define a login class. Now, since we want to control our navigation from within the login, I mean, when you log in, you need to create, you need to click on a button that will take you to the next screen, right? So in order to access the next screen, you need the navigation controller. So we call the nav controller. And how do we access the nav controller? The nav controller is inside app states. Oh, so we call app states.nav controller. All right. So now we need to create this login class. All right. So this is home. We create another package and we call it login. And now we create the class. All right, so we are going to create the composable for login. And as usual, we begin with composable and then function. And our login requires a nav controller. So a type of nav controller. And this is it. We can come in here and import this one. So now we don't have any issues here. Now, we need to create our login screen. Let's see if we can have the design, excuse me, display. No, preview found. If we build this, should it give us a preview? Oh, excuse me, I need to. Let me see if we can have a preview. We need a nav controller. But I do not have nav controller here. Okay, I cannot show the preview right now. So we could preview, but we're passing values to this. But we can decide to hide this first, and then we do not need this one. And then let's see if we can actually see a preview even as we. Our login requires that we pass an app state. Okay. I'm going to come into this login and I'm just going to use login. We'll definitely pass the navigation controller later. All right, so we call surface. Surface allows us to have access to the interface. If you hover over it, you can see the definition. It exists at every elevation and influences how the piece of the UI surface is visually related to other surfaces. So oftentimes when we create a new screen, we start with a surface. It can be a scaffold as well. I think at one place we use a scaffold, then a surface. But here I'm just going to start with a surface, and a surface has, just a moment, if we hover over the surface again, come on. Yeah, you can see that it can take a modifier, it can take a shape, it can take color, content color, border, and elevation. So we can provide all these, but all that I want is I want to style the look and feel. So I'm just going to call a modifier. All right, and I'm going to say modifier equals modifier dot fill max size. I want to fill the entire size of the screen. Okay. So here we are. So we don't see anything yet because I'm filling max size and I haven't provided anything. Surface has color. We can try color equals color dot blue. And if we refresh, so it takes, so we can see, okay, so this is a surface, it's taking the whole screen because of this modifier. All right, I can take the color off because that is not what I need. And then we can come to column. We want to define the element in our app. Remember, this is, let me see if we can go back. This is what we want. Okay, we want to define this. So we're going to create a column. And in the slide, I show you that with a column, you stack things vertically on top of each other. So all that we need to do is to create a column, and then we create an image, we create a text field, we create another text field, and then we create a button. It's the column is just going to arrange these on top of each other for us. So we can have a modifier. I think one of the biggest things that you'll be using is a modifier, really. Okay, so modifier that we want to fill the maximum width. We want our column to fill the whole width. And then I want to give it a padding on the sides of 16.dp. So I need to import this dp as well. It's going to provide a padding on each side. I remember we need to build, we've taken off the color, but we need to build and refresh to get the changes happening. And I'm going to call this thing here system bus padding. Oh, status system bus, yeah. Padding. This it applies additional space, which matches the width and height of the system bars, depending on the screen. So the system bar that we have at the top, it's going to ensure that we have that padding already defined for us. And when I hover over this, you can see the padding 16 dp that we provided on all the sides. So now our surface, our column is in here. Our surface is the whole thing, and our column is 16 dp away on the top, away from the end, away from the start, and away from the bottom. All right, so what goes into our column? First of all, we need an icon, which is the image that we're creating there. This, I used an icon. It can be an image tag, but for simplicity, we're just going to go for an icon. And when you hover over an icon, it can take either an image vector, an image bitmap, or a painter. I'm going to go with an image vector because I'm not providing an image. And so image vector, excuse me, we have this icons.default and account circle. So I can use this, and I will provide a modifier. And this one, I'm going to say that the size should be about 200.dp. And it's asking us, we need one more thing. We need a string. What is a string? Oh, I think it's contents. Content description. Yep. Okay. So I just created my icon, and I content description. You can set it to empty string or null. And if we build and refresh this, okay. So we have our icon here. That is great. The next thing we need is something we call the spacer. All right, and the spacer takes a modifier, and we just provide a height. We want to space out this, we want a space between our icon and the next element. So we can give it 10.dp. All right, then we go to the next element. Our next element, we're going to use an outlined text field. And our outlined text field requires these two things by default: a value, and then on value change, which is a function. So we're just going to open and close the braces. All right. And oftentimes when it happens this way, you want to leave a comment that's to do. All right. So just it highlights to you that, yeah, I need to implement this, else it's going to be empty. And so when you click it, nothing's going to happen. Or when a text changes in this one, nothing's going to happen. But we have to put a function in here to handle on value change. If we hover over it, we can see that there is a lot more that we can do. Here, the on value change that we just did, it's taking a string, and this is a function that is being passed. All right, we are passing a function to another function or to a composable, technically. And we can also see that it takes a modifier. We can enable or disable it. We can set it to read only. We can provide a placeholder, a leading icon, a trailing icon. whether it can detect errors or not, and then visualizations and keyboard options and stuff like that. We can set that the maximum lines that this text field can have, the shape of the text field, the color, and everything. So all of these can be added in here as descriptive parameters for this outline text field. All right, so we are going to do something in that regard. We will call a label. We want to label our text field, and our label also takes, let's see what a label is. Yeah, our label takes a function. It's a function. So we want to provide a text in there, and we want to call this text. That's going to be our username. We import UI Compose. Yeah. Okay, so that is going to be a label. We can refresh, build and refresh this. All right, so we see our text field there. I can zoom in. So yeah, you see our text field in the image, and then we can add a modifier. We wanted to fix the length of the whole width, and we can set the keyboard options, and keyboard options takes keyboard options, which also takes a keyboard type. And we can say keyboard type dots. So we have different ones. What do we want our username to be? Should it be a phone? Should it be just a number password? Should it be a number? Should it be an email? So depending on what we select here, the keyboard, the appropriate keyboard is going to be chosen. So that is it for what do you call it, the username side. We can just copy our spacer from here and bring it down here. And then we do the same thing. We just copy the outline text field because now we need a password. And then we make changes to this. We change the label to password. The value is still empty. And this keyboard, we change to password. And one more thing, we need to change the visualization, visual transformation. We're changing the visualization so that when you click in the password field, it doesn't show the real text. So we say it should visualize it using the password visualization. And then again, since it is linear, it is a column that we are in, we should be able to see this rendered. So now our password has also come in, and you can see how it is being placed. We're in a column, so it's just stacking it on top of each other. And then we bring our spacer again, which is very important to us, giving us a very clean layout. And the last thing we need is a button. So the button needs an on-click function, and we set it as enabled. I think it's disabled by default. And then we want it to also fill the, okay, we can leave it for now. And we have to give it a text, and the text is login. All right. So let's build and refresh. Okay, so this is what we have. This is our login button, but we see that our username stretches to the end, our password stretches to the end, but our login is right here. So we can add a modifier to that. I want you to see how the modifier works, and we say fill max width. And when we refresh now, it fills the maximum width. All right. I think the button also has a shape. Yeah, it has a shape. So we can use the shape. And the last time we saw shapes in our theme, yeah, we have shape here. And remember when the large one didn't have any rounded corners. The small ones had rounded corners of 20. So we'll try the large one. And we're going to say material theme.shapes. Large. When we click, okay, so as you can see, the edge has become straight as a box because the large has a corner shape of 0. Now let's change from large to small and see how it changes. Okay, so small brought back the indent. We can increase this to say 50. I need this to reload. Okay, I guess 50 didn't have any great effect there. All right, we'll go back to the modifiers and for the column, and we want to add something. Remember that our slide, we said that when you're creating the column, you need to set for a column, you need to set a vertical arrangement and a horizontal alignment, vertical arrangement and horizontal alignment. So in our column, we need to set horizontal alignment, and that is going to be alignment dot, we want to center it horizontally. Okay, so we want to center everything here. We want to put it in the middle, so we see that this guy is going to shift to the middle when we refresh. All right, so we have aligned all the components to the middle, but because these ones fill the whole width, you do not see any change. If they weren't filling the whole width, you would see them also move to the middle as well. So this gives us a cleaner layout so far, but we have one more thing to do, the vertical arrangement. Now, when it comes to the arrangement, how do we want vertically, how do we want it to be arranged? Do we want it to come down to the bottom, the whole thing be at the bottom, or the whole thing at the top, or in the middle? I prefer to use center for this one, for instance, so that it sits in the middle. And so this is what we're going to have in 3, 2, 1. Awesome. So our whole layout is now sitting in the middle of the screen. And this technically matches that. All right, this has some coloring in there with the themes and some black background. Yeah, but yeah, this gives us a white background and that. Okay, so what next? All that we want to do right now is to provide interaction to this button. And so to do that, we'll have to use our nav controller. But even before the nav controller, we want to set the text into our username and password. Now, currently the value is empty, so there isn't going to be anything. And on value change, we're not doing anything. All right, so to fix that, we have to come to the top here and define variables for our username. And we're going to use remember savable. We clear all this. And all that we need is a mutable state of empty. So our state is empty, but we are saying we are using mutable state because we are saying that our states can change. So this variable, the state of this variable can change. And we do the same thing for the password. Mutable state of empty. And we are saying this as well can change. So we come down to the username value and we just change this to username. But this, at this point, is a mutable state. But what this outline text field value requires is a string. All right, it requires a string. And so we say dot value. And then we are good. And the same thing we do here. So password dot value. All right, then what about this on value change? On value change, we know that it is a function that contains a value string. So I can call that that string data. And I'm just going to say my username dot value is equal to the data that is being passed. So technically, this data that I'm writing here is represented this string that is going to be entered into the field. And all that I'm doing is that whenever a new text is set into the field, I set that to the username value. And we're going to do the same thing for the password, right? So password.value equals the data that is coming in. This can be any name. It can be anything, but it should just be something that makes sense. Okay, now we can bring in the navigation and implement on click of the button. We want to move from this screen to another screen. But to move from this screen to another screen, that other screen that we need to move to must exist. So let's create our home. I'm just going to call it home. And it's going to be a composable. And it's going to be fun home. Okay, so I guess this is all I need right now. And so we need to implement this function here by using a navigation, right? Let's revisit code app state or our bank app, excuse me, which should be the mobile computing app. All right, so we set our initial destination to login. So when we start our app, we should come to the login, and we provide a composable for that particular navigation. If we are going to go to the home screen, then we need another composable, and that route should be what? Home. and we should call home here as well, just as we called login. Okay. But to start the whole thing, to run this application, we need to do one more thing. We need to go to our main activity, and we just need to clear everything that we have here. All right. We maintain we can maintain our theme. Let's see, we call this mobile computing app. And that is what we are going to initialize here. Okay. Now let's see if this is going to run. Hopefully it doesn't crash. And if it crashes, we should be excited. Okay, I think there was a crash. Awesome. All right. Okay, so it says that unable to instantiate activity component info main activity. So it wasn't able to instantiate our main activity because the class was not found. It didn't find the class main activity on the path. All right, so we couldn't find main activity. What could be the issue? We said that last week, we said things need to be defined in the manifest, right? All the activities need to be defined in the manifest. So let's go to the manifest. And yep, we see that activity doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because we moved it into the UI folder. Initially, it wasn't in the UI folder, it was in the main folder. And so it just began with dots. And the dots is that start from right here. But it is no longer in the main folders. We moved it to the UI, so you can see it now. Immediately I start typing UI, it's telling me that, okay, it is here. So it is now in the UI folder, and this issue is resolved now. So we rerun. And there we go. This is our UI that we just built. Let's try type something. So now you see, even as we type, it is coming in. But our input field is being overshadowed by the keyboard. That is something we need to fix later on. And let's try the password as well. So our password is hidden, which is what we want. Now let's go back to the login and let's comment this visual transformation for password. All right. And if we did that and we rerun, if we did that and we rerun, now our password is not hidden anymore. So although we have set the keyboard to password, we are not transforming the visuals. And so you see how important this visual transformation is. So we set the visual transformation to change this into a password visual. So users cannot see when someone, other people cannot see what is being typed into the password field. Okay, So now let's go to the interaction for the login. And we're going to remove this, and we would pass the nav controller to our login. So we come back to our login and we uncomment this guy here. And so it is unused. So what do we want to do when we click on the button? We just want our nav controller dot navigate, and we provide the routes for the navigation. So navigation can take a deep link, which is a URI. Deep links take you to a specific place inside the application. It can take an int, which is a resource ID. But it can also take a string. And so this is what we are providing right now. And the route that we are providing is home, which is from our state, no, yeah, which is here. So when we provide a route, home is going to call our home composable, which we have defined here, and which is technically empty right now. And so, no controller, no value pass, no. I need to remove this. No controller, let me see if I can pass. No. Nope, I need to add context. Okay, I'm just going to keep this preview off. So we're not going to have anything, but we'll be running from the, be running on the phone. Okay, so here we go. So we type something, we type some password, and we click this, voila, we just changed screens. So here we are on the home, screen now. But somebody's going to ask, how do we know we're on the home screen? We can go back and yep, we can click on this and we're on the home screen. So at least this is a little conviction that we're on the home screen. So we don't see anything on the home screen because we haven't done anything on the home screen at all. And so we have just about 10 minutes to go. Let me leave a text. Here is the home screen to be developed later. All right, so let's run this quickly. All right, so just click on this and yeah, so we're actually on the home screen. Okay, so here is a home screen to be developed later. All right, we don't have a lot of time, so I will quickly create this, the composable for the payments. All right, so in my UI, I'll create yet again another package. I like to keep my stuff, everything in packages. So this will be payments. And so we're going to create a payment file. Add composable payment. And this payment is going to take a parameter called on back press. So here we are passing a function to composable. this is how you pass a function. So if the function is going to have a parameter, you can add a parameter in here, hello or something. But we're going to pass a function without any parameter, which is on back press. So we are going to use this function when the user presses the on back, the back arrow. So I'm going to speed through this when you want speed. Okay, so where is design? This is what we want to create, this payment option. So I'm going to quickly create this. We need a column, so they are stacked on each other. But this particular third one, you realize that they are side by side, but they still happen to be in there. So over here, we are going to use a row to see how we can lay things to the side. But everything is in a column. So our surface is going to take a column, and we provide a modifier. Again, we want to fill the whole size. And then we want to provide a system bus padding. So it's going to provide us padding at the top where the system status is always shown. Then we are going to call a top bar. We're going to create a top bar. And we're going to provide a button, icon button. And here, we're going to pass the on back press. Excuse me. All right, and what icon do we use? Image vector is going to be icons, the default dot arrow back. Content description, we set it to null. And I just need to pass this function in here. Import on back. On back press equal to app state dot navigate back. Okay, I know why this is happening. I'm doing it at the wrong place. Yep, should be in here. Okay. Right, and so after the icon, I'm going to add a spacer. Or I can actually even leave this spacer and just provide a text. And the text we're going to provide is payment. All right, and so we provide a top bar, and then after the top bar, we have another column that we use our horizontal. Why does this thing keep happening this way? Horizontal alignment is alignments and vertical arrangement. The top And then we use a modifier, the padding, we're going to give it 16 dp. So we import that as well. And all we have to do is, technically, I'll just go back to the login and copy out our outlined text here. Did I copy that? Please. Why is this not copying? That's my text. Text, come on. Wow. Well, copy doesn't seem to be working for me today. Font value change. We're going to handle this later. And label. This is going to be recipient. And then a modifier plus modifier that fill max width. All right. So, and then we need our spacer, of course, and that is also takes a modifier. Height, we give it 10. The DP, yep. Okay, so let me see if my copy paste is going to work here. Copy. Okay. Copy paste recipient. We need a recipient name, a recipient account, and then we need a row. And we are going to create a row, and all that our row is going to do is going to contain 2 of these. And here we're going to change the spacer to width. And we would not use the modifier in here at all. It's just going to be dates, I think, and amount. Yeah, and then we'll need a spacer again between the row and the button. And then we're going to have our button. Max width, and then we can give us a size to the button, and we say we want it to be 55.dp. That's how big we want it. This modifier, whatever comes first, takes precedence. So first it's going to fill the whole width before it's going to apply the size. If we brought the size first before the fill width, it's going to apply the size, and then it's going to fill the width, and it may not give it the same thing. All right, so lastly, we're going to have save payment as text for the button. Okay, so we are technically done with the payment screen. All right, so here we are passing a function, which is, we are passing a function to this function because the payment is a composable function. And when we are passing the function, you could see that I'm just calling the navigate back function from here, but it is giving me an error, and it says that I should surround it with a lambda. So it's either I do this, I surround it with a lambda, and then it's going to work fine, or Kotlin allows you to do this, and then you can remove the parentheses at the end. So this is technically it. We want to see this payment screen. So what we are going to do is that we are going to go back to our login screen. And instead of navigating to the home, we are going to navigate to payments. And so let's run this again. Okay, so now when we click on login, it brings us to the payment screen that we designed. All right, since we haven't provided any interaction for this, when we click on it, nothing happens. But when we click on the back, it brings us back to the screen that we were on. So this brings us back, and payment does nothing. This, we haven't set any specific keyboard types or anything for payment. All right, so technically this is it. This is how you build simple layouts. Unfortunately, we weren't able, time didn't permit us to look at the list, but we'll try to do that next week. Or I would create a separate video during the week just for the list, and I'll upload that as well, so you can take a look at this, because designing this layout is slightly more complicated, and then adding it to the database tasks is going to be a little too much. We won't have enough time. So it's good that we're able to do these two. At least we saw how to use the column and the column again, but the row, we saw how to create an interface. And we saw how to create an interface again, and how to interact with the provide interactions to the buttons. And so we provide an interaction on this for this one, and when at the back one, and we're able to move back and forth. Okay, we saw how we could create a password field and a username field, how we could use icons, and how we could use icons in here as well. So I'll create a separate video during the week, and I'll send a message when that is done, and you will see how to create this lazy column. This one we use not just column, but a lazy one. And then the scrollable rows as well. In case you would want to use it in your assignments, then you'll see how you can use it. But this would be very vital when you go out there to work as an Android engineer, because you'll be working with these lists in almost everything. You definitely need to take data from users, so you need a form. You definitely need to log your users in, so you need a form. So this will be it for today, and I'll create a video during the week. I will upload this video soon to YouTube and share the link with you as well. Any questions? Excuse me for not giving you breaks. I keep forgetting about the breaks. I get so fixated on code and I keep forgetting about breaks. So, all right, thank you very much for coming. Have a blessed day.